originally scheduled for 21st. I want to make sure I got the right agenda here. I'm sure I do. Captain, did you send the original one you sent out said Thursday, March 21st? And it should have said Tuesday, March 21st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right now.
All right. We'll say that's corrected. So the regular board meeting is called to order. Roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Cruz,
Here.
Commissioner Lyons.
You're on mute.
You're muted, Tom.
Lyons.
All right. There he's here. Very good. Commissioner Diaz.
Here.
And Commissioner Roach is here. We have a quorum. At this time, please observe a moment of silence for retired police officer Terry Lambert, who passed away on February 28th. Terry was a good cop who had, you might remember, had some back problems that caused an early retirement that he wasn't crazy about. Unfortunately, he passed away at the end of last month. Thank you. We accept the minutes of the special board meeting, which was held on March 8th.
So moved.
It's been
Second.
moved. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's go to reports. We have the chief with us here this evening. Good evening, chief.
How are you?
We're doing fine, thanks. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, just a couple of quick points I want to point out, and then I have Captain Gillerin here with me from the Detective Bureau. I saw him on earlier, and then he's just going to give you a little overview of where we are in terms of criminal investigations. So to start with, I just want to start with our crime statistics as it relates to this time period last year. Overall crime is down 11% from this time versus last year. Although we do have 2 more homicides than we had this time last year. Currently, we have 4 homicides. This time last year, we had 2. And Captain Gillerin will go over where they are with those investigations at this point. And he can give you as much details as he can, obviously not to compromise the status of the investigations. So a couple of points I want to point out, and then I'll take any questions if you have for me. We've been doing it now for the last month or so, some details on each of our shifts. Each shift captain, they've been given the latitude to put out some details. So the B shift has been consistent of officers walking throughout the city in different areas and dealing with quality of life issues. So you may or may not have seen them. They move them around. They're not in the traditional places where you normally saw our walking details. We're trying to take them out into a broader spectrum of neighborhoods throughout the city. So we're looking to continue to do that. Also, the C shift, our clerk, obviously our Captain Cotto, is on the C shift, and he's has his officers also out there dealing with quality of life issues. They've been out walking and doing other motor vehicle enforcement and things of that nature throughout the city, also creating a greater presence in the housing communities as well. And on our A shift, we have Captain Cummins, who's in charge of the A shift. He's really been focusing on the bar details, the bar locations after hours throughout the city, dealing with having an increased presence around those areas. So far, we've been doing pretty good in those areas. We've had some issues with the hookah lounges, and I've spoken to a couple of the councilmen, our council members, Cruz and Mac, about some plans to address some of the issues regarding the hookah lounges. So we're in the process of working on some things, but until we get to that point, our details are concentrating on those areas. The third point I wanted to talk to you about was some contingency plans. As you all know, our manpower issues are down, and after April 1st is when, between April 1st and June 30th is typically the time when we see uptick in our retirements and things like that. So so we are hoping for the best, but also planning for the worst. So we've developed 3 contingency plans, and I'll share those with you privately. I'll give them to Commissioner Roach. that we will have to implement if we see a significant number of officers leave due to retirement. We'll have to have plans in place to address that. Hopefully we won't have to, but we put together what I believe are some very good alternatives to address these issues, albeit they'll be a bit taxing on our officers. And obviously we won't be able to provide the same level. The certain things we'll have to adjust to in terms of our responses and things like that. So I'll share that with you guys privately. I'll give it to Commissioner Roach and he can share with you guys those contingency plans. Those were put together with myself, our deputy chief, and all of our captains had input on developing those plans. So we'll be putting those out to you. Another key point, which will actually hopefully help our anticipated retirements, is we are going to be starting another academy class. I believe they're starting on Monday. And we think we're going to have at least 25 officers in that class. And they'll be starting Monday. In addition to that, we are also in the process of doing the backgrounds on another 66, I believe, applicants. So I'm hoping that we're able to get a good number of officers or recruit for our next academy class, or for that number, that number of 66. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing is, once those individuals are ready, we're probably going to be running a class simultaneous with the current class that'll be starting on Monday. The mayor has given us the authority and said, hey, we can do back-to-back classes, we can stagger the classes. So we're going to really try and push to get that, get both classes in. It's my goal and hope that we have a minimum of 50 officers, new officers on our streets sometime in the fall or next winter, early next winter. So that is the plan. I'll keep you guys updated as in terms of whenever the graduations are, so that you can be present for those things as they come about. Couple other points I wanted to go over. Discipline cases. So when I took over December 1st, there were a number of discipline cases that were left over from the previous administration. So I believe all of our outstanding cases that were left over, and Captain Cotto can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we're up to date, that we've completed all of those cases that were left over. And the ones that we're dealing with now are just things that have occurred since I've been in place. And I think between myself and Captain Cotto and also our labor relations office, we've developed a system where we're trying to move these cases along a lot faster. So we're trying to be much swifter with our discipline process to get the cases off the books as quickly as we can. Obviously, making sure that we are fair and proportionate in how we meet our discipline, but we're trying to resolve those cases in a much quicker process. Lastly, and then I'll take some questions if you have. Technology. In the next month or two, sometime next month, we're going to be rolling out some new technology called Nexus Lexus. And it's a new platform that's going to help us do our crime map and analyze our crime statistics. And we're really looking forward to that. I think it'll be a much more accurate picture of what our crime statistics are. And it will also give us a better roadmap on how we adjust and we respond to the crime based on the analytics that we are able to obtain from this new system. So we're going to be doing that. Captain Giller, we can talk about a couple of details that he's put in place to address some crime activity, some investigations that they've been doing. He could talk about that. But other than that, knock on wood, our crime statistics continue to be low or at a decent level. And, I'm just planning for our manpower issues. Hopefully they won't be as bad as people say they may be. But we do have some plans in place. Obviously, I think we would be irresponsible not to have some plans in place. And obviously those plans are going to, they're not going to be perfect and satisfy everyone. And there'll be some issues, I'm sure, with the union and other entities regarding these plans. But I think we won't have a choice but to do something. With that, I'll take any questions if you have for me, and then I'll bring in Captain Gilliran.
Okay, before we start with any questions, for the record, Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Farrow have joined us. Does any of the commissioners have any questions?
I see a hand up.
Yep. Commissioner Cruz.
thank you. Um, Chief Porter, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you for that report. I was wondering if you can squash a rumor that I hear, or maybe verify that is factual concerning the shortage of patrol officers on the street as a result of the retirement and those that are moving on or transitioning. That patrol officers are now driving alone without a partner on some hot spots. And there's some concerns about them, even though they may have backup, immediate backup if need be. There's some concerns about them driving into some areas by themselves.
Yeah, so we've always, so for the last couple of years, the only shifts that had two-man cars were the C shift and the A shift. And on those shifts, only 4 cars on those shifts had two-man cars. So what we've done is take them out of the being inside of the same car, but they cover the same post, but in separate cars. So when they respond together. And that's just to give us more coverage, more aerial coverage, and more police presence. So they're still partners, but they don't necessarily always ride in the same car, but they respond to the same call, and they should be getting there roughly at the same time. So that's what we've done. And that's just to create more visual.
Visibility?
Yeah, more visibility and more presence.
And also would allow for, if there are multiple calls at the same time, they'd be able to split up and answer 2 instead of 1.
Yeah, if need be, exactly. It just gives us greater coverage. Ideally, in a perfect world, all of our cars would be two-man cars, which hasn't been the case for quite a long time. But that's just to, help us with our presence and also respond to a multitude of calls. So there is some truth to that rumor.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, I guess we can turn it over to Captain Gillerin.
Good evening, commissioners. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
Good,
I
thank you.
don't believe I've ever met everybody on here, but most of you I have. I think that Reverend Terry Williams, I don't believe I've ever met you before. Anna Cruz, I think I've met you.
I believe so. Maybe one meeting or so.
Mr. Farrow, I know I've met you, and obviously Mr. Lyons and Mr. Roach, Mr. Diaz. So,
How are you?
Anybody that does, very good, thank you. Anybody who doesn't know me, I've been on the job for 26 years. I've been in a detective bureau for the last 2 years, and I'm in charge of the task forces too. So the task forces consist of the federal agencies that we have dedicated detectives to, both state and federal. So we have a partnership there, and they help us investigate crime on the federal level. So having said that, I know the chief had just talked about the homicide rate, and our numbers lag when they're in the reporting period. They come, it's the week prior. So truthfully, there's been 4 verifiable homicides this year, and at this time last year, with the updated list, because I have it right in front of me, this time last year there were 4 homicides. Overall violent crime was down last year. So when we compare to the numbers to last year, it is pretty tough to get them down, but they remain down. Non-fatal shootings are down 62%. We were going to focus this year on non-fatal shootings and solvability. Homicide solvability last year, it was at 87%. That was well above the national average. We hope to do that this year. Out of the 4 homicides, we solved 2 of those. There's solvability for the other 2. We just need a little more cooperation, and there's a good chance we're going to get there with those 2 other homicides. Now, anybody see the news today about we had a suspicious death? That could be a 5th homicide, pending the medical examiner's report tomorrow. So we had an untimely death of what looks like a homeless person in the 900 block of Clinton Avenue this morning, around 10:30 this morning. And that person was deceased, had been deceased for a couple days prior to anybody noticing, and it's very suspicious. So that could turn into a homicide. Other than that, robberies are down 44% in the city. which is something that we just don't see. It's a credit to the Detective Bureau here. We have a sergeant that's in charge of robbery and burglary, and we've bolstered that unit this year because it's always been a problem for us in the city. But happy to say we're down 44% so far this year on robberies, and I know we always hear about him. A lot of repeat offenders. If they make those arrests, we can bring the numbers down. As far as staffing in the Detective Bureau, we're scheduled to about 15% are probably going to retire. 15%, 50% could, and I don't think they're going to. I think most people, enjoy their job here, and I don't think that we're going to have a major staffing issue in the Detective Bureau. At the end of last year, we brought our staffing up to almost full level. So that was probably a smart idea for us, seeing that we're going to lose 15%, but we're going to maintain here in the Detective Bureau, and the investigations are going to get completed. So I don't have any concerns of that rolling into 2023 into 2024. If you guys have any questions for me, I can't really talk too many specifics on the homicides, but I'll do the best I can.
Any questions for the captain? Commissioner Farrell?
Can you, and
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Cruz, if you're ready to jump in.
apologize.
That's right.
Concerning
Ed's
the
got
accident
himself
that
muted
happened-
anyway.
The accident that occurred, the terrible tragedy that occurred on Boston Avenue with the driver
Mhm.
who
Yes.
may be responsible for the two deaths, the aunt and the nephew. Am I correct?
So Mrs. Cruz, I'm not going to be able to answer that because we have a traffic division that they have a fatal and serious accident team that investigates that separately from me. And that's
Mhm.
actually Captain Blackwell. That would be the person would be in the
So
know on all of that.
I can
But the
speak.
chief probably can, yes.
Yeah. So what was your question again, Commissioner?
So I think my concern is that generally when someone is responsible, especially if the person was under the influence,
Mhm.
there would be police officers standing by while he was in a coma and then ICU, et cetera. Because my understanding, he was able to sign out and go back home. Ultimately, I don't know. It's not for me to know, obviously, because it's under investigation, but if that person is responsible, once it's determined, for whatever reason, if he was speeding, et cetera, we wait for what? A warrant to be issued?
Yeah. So in a case where an individual was injured and that individual was injured and they're taken to the hospital, so obviously at that point we can't do we can't make a determination of whether they were impaired or not by doing any field sobriety tests or anything like that. So what we're doing is there's a follow-up investigation, and we're going to investigate and see if there were any determinant factors that might have played a role in that accident. And if that is the case, then that person will be held accountable. And so I can say that we are continuously investigating that. I had a conversation with the child's mom the day he passed, and I expressed to her that we're going to do our best to make sure if in fact there were some other factors that are criminal, we will make sure that the person will be held criminally liable for that situation.
I appreciate that. I was just
And
concerned what the
typical-
protocol is.
Yeah, and typical for a fatal accident, and if somebody goes to the hospital and they can't do a field sobriety, they are going to get a warrant for the blood, and they're going to test the blood, and then they would get an arrest warrant after the fact. That's common.
Yeah.
With accidents like that. So.
And so that's something that we obviously are looking into, Commissioner. So excellent question, and we haven't forgotten about that. Trust me.
And
No, I'm
Chief,
sure.
thank you, Chief, for reaching out to the family. In this case, that's much appreciated. Commissioner Farrell, did you have a question?
I do have a question, and it has to do with the homicides part. So we have 4 viable, 1 potential new homicide, and then you mentioned the 62%. I guess it's a decrease of 62% of non-fatal shootings.
Yeah, total 9 fatal shootings are down 62%. So this time last year, there were 21. I believe there's only been 9 this year. I know the report says 8, but today we had somebody walk into the ER just before this meeting. We haven't found a location where it happened, and unfortunately, when somebody shows up to the hospital in Bridgeport and they don't tell us where it happened, we kind of eat the number. I mean, even if it happens in somebody else's jurisdiction, if that person, resides in the city and they go report to the hospital and we don't get a shot spotter, and we have no crime scene, we kind of eat the number. And it looks like it's probably going to be 9. So this time, this time last year it was 21. We're at 8 non-fatal shootings for the year. Yeah, down 61.9, I believe it is. Almost, I'll throw it at 62, sir. I'll take the number. I'm happy that it's down.
No, I think that's great. I think that's great. But the reason I asked the question is because I went with then Sergeant Breck on a ride along, I guess it was at the time. And then numbers always seem to be a little bit misleading, right? We could say percentages all day long, but and it's great that it's 62% down, because that's really a huge number. But when you say 4 verifiable homicides, but then if you put them in conjunction with the other 9 people, say, who got shot, I mean, that was a potential 13 down, right?
Right.
And I think
Exactly. And
And
then,
we're looking at, so last year, at this time last year, there were 4 homicides and there was 25 incidents total. So, yeah, and we're only at, if we're gonna count today, we'd be at 14 incidents. And by the way, 2 of the homicides that happened this year from blunt force trauma, it wasn't even gun violence.
right.
Yeah.
and so with numbers, so we're always cognizant that numbers are just a measure. Ultimately, it's how people feel is what we are most concerned about. So while we present these numbers, we understand that these numbers could go either way. We do good police work, but I think we also, there's a level of luck. But ultimately, it's how people feel is what's most important to us. But I will point out that we did start this non-fatal shooting task force because we recognize, Commissioner Farrell, that for the grace of God and good medical attention and good police response, these non-fatal shootings could have been fatal shootings. So that's why we really focused this year with this multi-jurisdiction task force to go after the non-fatal shootings, because we understand what those could have been. So
Yeah.
So,
And I
Go ahead.
was going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I mean, Captain Grech has been involved in the Fusion Center over the last few years, and he's been dealing with crime analysis as well. And he talks about how if somebody enters information wrong into NextGen, into our report system, that it could skew the numbers. Well, the shooting numbers are never going to be skewed because I know every person that's been shot in the city. I know because I work in the detective bureau. Those numbers are accurate because I have a name and a date of birth and where they live and where it happened right in front of me. And I make sure that I have that right here in the detective bureau, and I don't rely on the crime analysis unit to give me those particular numbers. So those are accurate.
Right. And so the other interesting thing that I've learned, and part of the reason I'm asking this question, I actually spoke to someone yesterday and I said to them, truth be told, if you're going to get shot, the best place to get shot is probably in Bridgeport, because you're more likely to survive, right? If you get shot here than somewhere else, right? I see Commissioner Cruz shaking her head, but it's true. I was telling something. If you're going to be in that kind of disposition, it's probably better to be here, because I think the hospitals have the experience, and 2, I think we have really good doctors here in Bridgeport. But the other thing,
we get good police response and good ambulance response too. I think contributing
10
factor.
minutes away.
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Next time I'm gonna get shot, I'll make sure it's here.
I
Don't
don't claim that for myself. Thank you.
don't do that. And then the other question I had, and this is just, maybe for clarification for myself and maybe for other people who hadn't even thought about it, because you got the number of people who were actually shot, and then you have the number of times that actual, shots are going off. And I know we have Shot Spotter now, and I'd be curious to find out like how many actual shots are being fired. So it's one thing to shoot at someone, it's something else to get hit, and then there's something else yet again to die as a result of it, right? And so it's putting all those numbers together, and I don't mean to go too far, Detective, But
You know,
I just,
and I would love to give you that answer, but you know, I don't run the shot spotter system either. So I don't have their total numbers. And you know, I can look at at what it says on the paper, and it says those are down 45%, but I don't know, you know, I can't verify that. I think that's a better question for Captain Greg.
And so with our new program that we're going to go to, our Nexus Lexus program, it's going to include ShotSpotter. So we'll be able to map it, and on a map, we'll be able to pull up all the different areas where shots are occurring. So we are
Am I losing you?
going to be able to do that.
well,
sorry,
nothing, the fact that the numbers are going down, I guess that's more important than anything.
Yeah. Ultimately,
It is.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Right.
I see Commissioner Williams has her hand raised. Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say, Captain Gilron, I believe we met on my previous position. I worked for the Department of Corrections, and I
Okay.
was the parole manager here in Bridgeport.
Okay, yes.
So it's been a while.
It's been a
I've been
while.
retired 5 years, so I think it was a couple of years prior to that. So it may be between, you know, maybe about 5 to 9 years that we've seen each other. But again, it's a pleasure meeting and seeing you again.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I could just conclude with, if there's not another question, I want to conclude with something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Could I speak? One thing, it seems to be impressive for us as a city in Bridgeport, and you guys as police officers, that it's not hardly spoken about too much. Shootings involving robberies. I would bet that we probably compare a lot better than a lot of other cities. Hardly ever hear about a bodega or a store getting robbed, or a bargain stuck up, where you hear that in a lot of the other cities, even not the major cities, some of the towns. And I think that we would compare really high. I don't know if you have anybody taking those numbers, or it would probably be a positive number on the side. And you know, for general get out to the public knowledge, it might be a good idea.
Yeah, I would suspect that you know, we do on average better than other cities, but a lot of it has to do with our robbery squad. And I know the captain just mentioned that a little while ago. We have a dedicated robbery squad with one of our sergeants, who they do really good work, and they do proactive work to try to intervene robberies. But unfortunately, we do still get robberies in Bridgeport. Yeah.
No, I understand, but I think it would be a selling point for us as a city as a whole, just to say, hey, you know, regardless of what they say, your business is safe in Bridgeport.
That's a good point. And so one of the things that I've done is I work with our business communities. I'm a part of DSSD, and I've gone to meetings with Commissioner Roach with some of the businesses, because we want to put the real truth and get rid of some of the perceptions that are out there.
Exactly.
That overall, we are doing pretty good. You know, I don't want to rest on our laurels. We are doing pretty decent.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with you, and I think that maybe DSSD and some of those can use that in some of their advertising and some of their stuff, just to uplift the city as a whole.
Yeah. I had a recent conversation with Commissioner Roach, and one of the things I talked about was any businesses that come here, I'd be willing to meet with them, and they can come to talk to my officers and see where we are in terms of what we're trying to do here. I think that would.
You know, and I was just, you know, off the top of my head, when you mentioned something like that, I think of the Chinese restaurant on, I think it's Wood and Wade. They had a shooting over there, and we made an arrest on that, and we even got the federal government to prosecute the case. So we're not leaving it here in the state, when the federal government's going to get a lot more time. It's a business, it's a robbery. There was shots fired. Luckily, the store owner survived.
Right.
The cash register, I believe, saved him on that one. But that case got transferred. That's going federal. He's going to end up in federal prison for that.
Excellent.
That is good news. That's my Chinese store
Mhm.
or restaurant.
Yeah.
I go there all the time, and I went
Yeah.
there before and after. So, well, I appreciate everything you've all done. It's really good news.
We're continue to try to get better. And I just wanted to point out, one of the things that I want to do as a chief is I really want to develop my officers, from patrolmen to sergeants to detectives to lieutenants, and my captains and deputy chiefs. So one of the things you're going to see happening more is me bringing captains to these meetings because, I know you have Captain Cottle and he does an excellent job, but we have other captains who are doing really good work too. So I want them to come to these meetings and be a part of these and develop, and so that you get to know them as well. So look forward to that happening more. And just all of our captains, as well as all of our officers, and that was a good question you had, Commissioner Cruz, regarding the officers being split up. So all of us are doing multitask now. Like Captain Cotto is still the clerk, the discipline guy, and he's the captain on the C shift. We talk all the time. Captain Gillerin is in charge of the Detective Bureau, Investigative Services, our ESU team. So we all are bearing the burden of our officer issues. So, but we're doing the best. We're working really hard, and we're going to continue to work hard. So, any questions you ever have of us, feel free to get a hold of us, and we'll answer as best we can.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
Thank you.
Captain, Chief, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for having us.
You're more than welcome to stay on the call, but I know you're busy, and if you have to jump off, have a great evening, okay?
Thanks for having us.
All right,
Chief,
guys.
can you stay,
Thank you.
so in case there's any questions regarding the traffic policy? You might be able to help address them.
Say that again.
Can you stay in case the board has
Yeah,
any
yeah.
questions regarding the traffic policy
Okay, I'm on.
tabled from last week?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Take
All
care.
right.
Kevin. Thanks for coming, Kevin.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for
Have a
sticking
good
with us.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
do,
Thank you.
Bye.
We have Brad Seeley here from the union. Brad, do you have anything you need to share with us? You gotta turn off your mute button there, bud.
Yeah.
Hi, Commissioners. Yeah, at this time, I have nothing. We are here for the Plan B pension vote a little bit later on.
Very good, thank you. Let's we'll go out of order a little bit, and we'll go to item 4A, since the chief is still on the line here, and it's a request from Captain Cottle for review and approval of an update to the department policy regarding traffic accident investigation. So, Captain.
Good evening, and thanks for hearing this policy again. So this is the policy from last month that got tabled. When it got tabled, I believe Commissioner Roach had asked if anybody had any questions regarding the status of this policy to contact me, and I got no questions. So I took it upon myself to kind of change some of the language. If you look on page 6, I added something in there under E. And I believe this was the major problem that Commissioner Farrell was kind of worried about. If there is an injury post-accident, what are we prepared to do? And I did reply that this is something that, police officers do normally, and that it didn't have to be in a policy, but I did add the language in there. And I'll read it out loud. It says, if there is a complaint of injuries days after the original complaint and the injury was not originally reported, the assigned officer will document such complaint on an addendum form with the original call for service number. I believe that will cover, if there is an accident and it's one of these matter of record accidents, and 2 or 3 days later, somebody's neck's hurting, and it typically happens, right? You get into an accident, person's full of adrenaline, you're late for work, you don't want to go to the hospital, and then you wake up in the morning and you're in a neck brace. Sorry, Commissioner, when it's too soon, but it happens. It happens all the time. So, and then you're gonna think back and you're, oh, I should have had a written report. Well, you can come back to the PD and we can document your injuries, and whatever your report is, we write it down. We do that anyway, but now it will be a part of the policy. So that's the change that I put in there. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions on the change? Chief, any comment from your end, or?
Yeah, I just want to say what we're trying to do with that particular policy, and we may be doing some other things, is just to reduce the time and the need for officers to respond to certain calls, especially accidents where there are no reported injuries and individuals settle them among themselves. But if, like the captain stated, if someone later on has some pain or injuries like that, obviously we can do an addendum and properly document that.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Farrow?
Yeah, so the question essentially is, well, maybe it's not even a question. Is there's going to be a report, it's just not going to be an extensive report, or I guess because maybe that's where the confusion is from my standpoint. I almost got the impression that there's no report at all because there's no injuries, no
So that's
damage.
So that's not true. Every time you
Okay.
call the police, there's a report.
Okay,
There is something documented that Manny Cotto hit Edwin Farrell, and we decided to settle amongst ourselves. And we even go as far as we go out to the call and give you guys a paper to exchange your information. We can verify your information and make sure the insurance is valid. So we are doing something and we're responding, but what we're not doing is taking the 2 hours to write this report when I just admitted fault. You know, I said I hit him from behind. I was driving too fast. It's completely my fault. And, you know, I'm sorry, here's my insurance information. That's probably about a 2-hour report where, you know, the officer can go out there. There is a document and there is a call for service. Every time you call the police, it is documented under a call for service. So even the calls where it's handled over the phone, you lost your cell phone and you need a report for Verizon, there's a document of that call. Now, 2 days later, you can call the police back and be like, oh, my brother-in-law stole my phone and I have him on video. The same way, we're gonna go back and we're gonna associate that original call for service number that happened 2 days ago, and we're gonna write the new information on the report. So there may have been some confusion last month about, you know, the documentation of a call, but anytime you call the police, it's associated what we call a CFS, call for service number.
and this is a report that the individuals involved in the accident can actually go and pick up at any time. They're given an actual complaint number. Is that how that works? Or
Yes, so what they'll get is a report. It'll say Edwin Farrell called the police. He reported an accident, said he was struck from behind. And then when the officers get there and they check people's paperwork and they're checking them for warrants and they verify their insurance, that information gets attached to the report. So there's two ways that you're going to get each other's information. We're going to give you this insurance information exchange report where you'll be able to write it down. And then you can come back to the police and get a printout of that call for service report. We're just not doing the 21-page accident report. So that's the difference. So there is a documentation of this accident occurring on this date at this location, you know, for insurance purposes or for legal purposes or whatever. So it is documented. It's just not the 21-page accident report that everyone's used to. And, you know, just to kind of back up a little, there is a criteria for these accidents. You know, it's going to have to be an accident where the estimated damage is $1,000 or less. There's no reported injuries at the time, and the vehicles are not city-owned or from another municipality. And it can't be like a bus or a public passenger vehicle.
right. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Commissioner Cruz, you want to add something there?
Thank you. I'll try to make this very brief. Interestingly, after we discussed this traffic policy, so in a nutshell, my understanding is that we're sort of behind based on what other police departments are doing, right?
Yes.
Am I correct? And I
Yeah.
think that we got the impression that to avoid a police officer having to show up at every traffic accident may not be necessary, right? If it's minor, but how do you, even though there is what you call a call for service number, when people call in, I happen to walk upon a accident shortly right after it happened on Madison Avenue, and it happened, how could I say, the impact was so severe that both tires were practically off both vehicles in the front end on the side where the impact struck. So it took approximately 50 to 55 minutes for an officer to show up, and I get it. Listen, it was early afternoon, I don't know, maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. And how do you know if that's necessary? Because every accident to every civilian is they're not gonna know that you're not gonna show up. Am I correct? And
No, but
so,
we're showing up. We're not saying we're not showing up. We're showing
oh,
up.
you are showing up
We're
anyway?
showing up, and we're gonna make this determination if the accident falls under this criteria. So the only way to determine if the accident falls under these criteria is for the police officer to show up and visualize the accident. Now, this accident you're speaking about with tires flying off and the impact was so bad, it sounds more than $1,000 worth of damage and possible.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that, but I'm saying it was right in the middle of
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah,
And the guy that was supposedly under the influence, because there was an argument that was going to happen, and I told the guy to back off because I was there, to let the police handle it when they arrived. He was the one directing traffic. They had to go around, they had to go around this much space on one side for the other traffic to move forward. And that's all good and well. And the young man's car, brand new car, was demolished, and he was asked by his mother, do not move. He was behind the scene. I think the sad part was that because it took so long, there were no police on the scene. The ambulance was trying to get through to get to the house, 2 houses away from the accident. And they said they'll call another ambulance because they weren't called to that accident,
so Commissioner Cruz, I believe that this policy is going to shorten our response time so that we're not wasting time on these no-brainer accidents, and we'll have more time to respond to something more serious. That's the purpose of this accident, is to increase our response time, because waiting 50 minutes at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is unreasonable, especially with an accident with possible injury.
It was pretty sad, yeah.
Yeah, so
To
we're
witness
just
that.
looking for new and different ways to kind of increase our response time so we can be more responsive to the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion regarding the policy change as amended. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Diaz. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Williams. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, the motion's passed. Getting back to the regular order on the agenda.
I just have
Um,
one question, and it's not anything with the pop, but just making sure notification is given to the people who are involved in the accident, that they are not expecting an accident report when it comes to this matter.
So what we do is we do pass out the insurance exchange report.
Okay.
And the chief can testify, I believe it happened to him, where, he got into an accident and they were like, yeah, this is what we do. You exchange information. And he's like, well, where's my report? And then they kind of explained to him that, it's not an accident where we're going to be writing a report. Someone admitted fault, and all you have to do is just call it into your insurance company. So this policy will come with some training where we're going to kind of teach our officers how to respond and how to answer these questions differently. Because you're right. The last thing we want to do is give someone a false sense of, I'm going 3 days to the record room to pick up my accident report, and all I'm getting is this piece of paper with the call for service. So there will be, a part of training that has to go with this accident, because for the last God knows how many years, we've done things one way, and now it's just a totally different paradigm of how we're policing. And not only with this policy, like the chief said, with our contingency plans, we have to start thinking about policing in a different way, so that not only do we not burn out our officers, but that, we're responsive to the public, professionally. So these are kind of the different things that, we're coming up with.
Thank you. Because I think, a lot of people are not receptive to change.
Yes,
And so when you have
Especially
that, you're going to
cops.
have people coming to the record room, and they're going to be like kind of irate because they're
Yeah.
expecting an accident report if we don't roll it out the correct way. Thank you.
no, you're welcome.
Okay, moving along. Internal Affairs report, there's none this month. Clerk's report on the status of pending matters. We have one discipline case and one second step. Is that correct, Captain?
Yes, sir. So the second step that was postponed from last week, I did include a letter from the complainant in the packet. I guess he's waiting for some information from the city attorney's office. And he just asked that he would get back to me when he's ready to go for the second step. He falls within the barrels because he did make his complaint for second step within the allotted time. He's just not prepared to go forward. But I do have one other second step complaint and one new CC1.
And usually we'd like to schedule everything in one evening. It looks like you have one of each anyway ready to go.
Yes,
Is the idea maybe to schedule a week or two out, and then if the other gentleman is satisfied with whatever he's waiting for, we can add that to the agenda. Does that make sense?
absolutely. I would just need more than 1 week notification to the union. So for chief's discipline, we give 2 weeks notice.
That's fine.
So anything 2 weeks plus is fair notification to the union.
Okay, unless there's any objection from the union members present. And of course, that depends on the matter itself. If it's something that is going to require more time for the union to prepare, or the union attorney to prepare, or not. But I would say if we want to schedule something, maybe 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
2 weeks from today, is that
Both cases are not more than 1 day. They should be
Right.
settled in 1 day.
okay?
Just for the record, I'm not available on Tuesday.
Not available
2
that
weeks from now
Tuesday?
is April 4th.
Okay. What about 2 weeks from this Thursday? I know Wednesday sometimes is tough for people.
Impossible.
I won't be here
Just that particular Thursday?
that
How
particular
about
Thursday.
Wednesday?
How about Wednesday then? I know
I'll be-
Wednesdays used to be tough for at least one commissioner, but
Can't do Wednesday.
we can't do Wednesday. All right.
Commissioner
3 weeks from
Rhodes,
today,
yeah.
are all Tuesdays bad for you, Commissioner Cruz, or just that particular one?
Commissioner
Yeah.
Roach, we'd have to go 3 weeks out because I still have copies and letters and things to write.
Okay,
Wednesday, that only gives me 1 day to make these
all right.
notifications, and that's not gonna happen. So we gotta go 3 weeks out.
So 3 weeks from today, it's not gonna work for Commissioner Cruz.
Not on a
Wednesday,
Tuesday.
not on a
Wednesday will be
Tuesday.
better.
Wednesday doesn't
Fine.
work for Commissioner Diaz. That particular Thursday, Commissioner Farrow, is that good for you, or,
That's without,
I'm sorry?
you're talking about the following, the third week?
It's 3 weeks from this Thursday.
3 weeks from this Thursday, I should be fine.
Okay. All right, can we schedule that then
Yes, sir.
for,
Is that the
3 weeks?
13th?
Yes.
I will not be available. That's my
Yeah, what-
birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank
happy
you.
birthday. Geez, don't you want to celebrate your birthday?
Absolutely.
No,
Okay.
No, you mean with
Cake-
us. Don't
cake
you want
and
to
ice
celebrate your birthday
cream.
with us?
If you have
Okay.
cake and ice cream, I'll be there.
Okay,
Mine is on the 7th, so.
Oh,
Cake and ice cream.
okay. We can celebrate together.
and actually, I misspoke because that's actually the day that I'm going to be away. That
okay. That
For the week
Thursday,
before, you're good. 2 weeks, you're good.
okay.
Yeah.
So, we have 2 people that can't make that Thursday. We'll either have to do Tuesday or Wednesday. And I know Tuesdays aren't good for Commissioner Cruz. Wednesdays aren't good for Commissioner Diaz, so we'll flip a coin on that, and Captain will send something out soon if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, all righty.
Thank
Moving on, nothing under new business. Item 4B, which was the request from Mr. William. I'm sorry, maybe I should work on this last name, but La Salada, is that?
Yes,
Oh, geez, amazing, got it on the first try. I know we tabled that at our last meeting. We have members of the union here to participate in a Plan B meeting, which will take place after we adjourn our regular meeting and reconvene. So we have nothing as far as correspondence or letters of appreciation. Widow's pension, we just discussed. Moving on, the city traffic engineers report. We have several items under 9A that the city traffic engineer is requesting we approve. I think they all seem to be in order. I just have a question. It might be something on the agenda that needs to be corrected. The third item under 9A, the installation of a flashing stop sign for Harmony Street and Ezra Street. Actually, according to the city traffic engineer's letter, he is not recommending a flashing stop sign, but a regular stop sign. At least that's what I got from the lawyer. So if we can correct that, please, that third item. And unless there's any other questions, we have, I would entertain a motion to combine the items under 9A and approve.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Are there any opposed? Okay, those items have been approved. We under the item under item 9B, total of 5 items actually that the city traffic engineer is recommending denial. There is the do not block driveway sign on Wilmot Avenue. There is the city traffic engineer took a look at the site, and it's not a driveway. It's actually just a sidewalk that they park cars on, I'm assuming, but he's recommending not to approve because it's not an actual driveway. We have requests for handicap signs that are denied. And I think in most of those cases, if not all, there's been there is the availability of off-street parking, but all applicants were claiming that they're not allowed to park in that driveway or their driveways because of the landlord, of course, but they didn't supply us with any communication from their landlord saying that they're in fact not allowed to park in the driveway. So I guess we have what I see is are 2 options. We can move to not approve based on the recommendation of the city traffic engineer, or we can table those items and enable the applicants to provide something from their respective landlords.
Yeah,
any,
I think it's only right that we wait for the letter,
Okay.
at least give them some ample time, reasonable time.
Okay.
to retrieve that.
If that's the case, well, first off, the first item under 9B, is there a motion to concur with the city traffic engineer, which is not to approve?
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Are there any opposed? All right, that matter's been settled. The other 4 items, entertain a motion to combine those items and request the clerk to notify those applicants and at least to give them an opportunity to provide something from their landlords that states that they're not allowed to park on the driveways.
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you. Unless there's anything else with our regular meeting, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
It's been moved by Commissioner Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Diaz. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our regular meeting is adjourned. The board now reconvenes as the trustees of the pension Plan B. We have a roll call of pension B
Commissioner Roach,
member.
stand
Yes,
by. We just got to turn off the YouTube because I believe the Plan B should not be broadcasted over YouTube.
okay. Can we take care of that?
Yep, just give me a minute.
Yep.